About 10 to 15 years ago, UK politics was more of a calm sea, with Labour and the Conservatives sailing in the middle ground. The complaint in the UK then was that politics was very middle ground, and there was little difference between the two main political groups or parties. The main political parties in the UK are Labour, Labour, and the Conservatives, Conservativs. Labour are more left-wing and the Conservatives, currently Rishi Sunak's party, are more right-wing. 10 or 15 years ago, there seemed to be much less difference between Labour and the Conservatives, and UK politics was very middle ground. When it came to voting, sometimes people complained there was little difference between the parties. Perhaps compared to now, those times seemed relatively peaceful. People were less worked up, less exercised perhaps by the issues of the world. But since then, it's gone from being a calm sea to a stormy ocean, where people's opinions are more divided, more polarised. Why is that? And is this happening in your country too? I'll give you some more examples. People have varying opinions on the COVID vaccine. That's vaccine, the injection which many people had to protect them from COVID. So there are people who tend to be on the left, who continue to support the vaccine programme, who still get their vaccines and cannot understand anyone who doesn't. And at the other end, there are the anti-vaxxers, often spelt Vaxxer. These are people who might never have had the vaccine, and their reasons range from worrying about allergic reactions to what we call conspiracy theories, meaning ideas that there is another intention, another purpose behind the vaccine, usually that is rather dark. That's a conspiracy theory. One example was that the government might have been putting microchips into everyone's arms so they can monitor us. Clearly, most sensible people know that that's not true. The problem is that if you express a viewpoint in the middle ground, a questioning viewpoint perhaps, people very easily respond as though your views are extreme because you don't think exactly the same way as they do. So if you choose not to get your vaccine, you must be an anti-vaxxer. Or if you do get your vaccine, you're just following directions, unquestioningly, blindly perhaps. If you do more research, you'll find that there are some compelling arguments which go against the mainstream narrative, the official story. And these are interesting and sound as though they could be true, but also they are unproven. As far as climate change is concerned, people are sometimes seen to be wholly behind every idea that supports the need for carbon reduction. And some people are climate change zealots. A zealot, Z-E-A-L-O-T, means someone who's a massive and extreme supporter of an idea. That's a zealot. So there are people so convinced of the climate change emergency that they pin themselves to signs above our motorways, stopping the traffic for hours on end. Or they throw soup at a Vincent van Gogh painting. I think there's an effect that people at the extremes tend to grab the headlines, tend to be covered in the news. And the idea that the majority of people might have viewpoints in the middle ground can seem to get lost sometimes. Also, it might be that if you're in the middle ground, the more extreme ends of opinion would see you as ill-informed or not doing enough for the climate, not caring enough. And at the other end of the spectrum, you're a climate change denier. And there are climate change deniers who think that climate change is completely made up. And there is no problem at all with fossil fuels and continuing as we are. To me, clearly the middle ground between the views of climate change zealots and climate change deniers is where the interesting discussion happens.